Yeah, like that.
Hey guys, we're here for our next session. We have Moran from UNICEF who will be doing a talk around building for impact, blockchain for emerging markets. And I'm going to let him take it from here. If you guys can just confirm that you can hear him, that'd be great.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Moran Haidari. I am a product manager at UNICEF out of New York, and I work specifically for the Office of Innovation. And so today I wanted to take you through some of the work that we've done in the blockchain space in a lot of the markets that UNICEF works in, give an overview of what UNICEF is. And I'm leaving a few minutes towards the end. So if you guys have questions about some of the stuff that I talk about, if you guys have questions and stuff, happy to address them at that time. So I'm just going to turn off my video now and then going to jump right into the presentation. So if you guys have questions, throw them into the chat and I'll address them after I'm done the first part. Awesome. So I did title this Building for Impact, Blockchain for Emerging Markets. And the reason for that is because UNICEF, if you guys don't know, currently operates in over 190 countries around the world. Technically, we have 130 offices around the world, and so we use those offices to then do the work in a lot of the countries that we do our work in. If you're wondering what UNICEF actually is and what kind of work that they do, so UNICEF is a UN agency that focuses on providing services to children around the world. And so what kind of services do we try to, or what categories do our work kind of fall into? We do work around child protection, social inclusion, education, tackling issues around gender equality, and of course, jumping into emergencies that may occur as well. And emergencies do impact children quite aggressively, and so UNICEF plays a very active role in making sure that they're taken care of, their education does not get too obscured because of all the emergencies or crises that they may have to deal with growing up. One cool fact about UNICEF, they actually buy 1/3 of all vaccines that are currently created in the world, and they're also the largest purchaser of pencils as well. And so, I think this year, no matter where you are in the world, we're seeing very big changes happening, whether it's due to pandemics. I think that's the one that we're all relating to right now. But UNICEF has been playing in this space for a long time. And so, prior to coronavirus, we were doing a lot of research into how Ebola is spreading in various regions around the world. And so the work that we do kind of stems from, existing work that we already take part in. And, climate change is becoming more prevalent as time passes. It's causing people to move around, leave their homes because of floods or forest fires and stuff. And so again, UNICEF has to take an active role and be cognizant of these types of situations. And so we have our existing offices that tackles the work in the traditional ways that they've been doing for the past 50 to 60 years. We have another team that sits within UNICEF called UNICEF Innovation, and it's kind of like a research lab where we take a lot of emerging technologies like blockchain, like machine learning, and we think of ways that it can be applied in the countries that we do work in. And so, we are developing some kind of research capacity, and the way that we do that is we build apps. We work with our country offices to say, like, here's what blockchain is. Here's what a machine learning algorithm can do. Are there any ways that this can be applied to the work that you guys are doing on the ground? And so we have very close relationships with our country offices, and a lot of the learnings and findings that we start off within the Office of Innovation then is eventually translated over to the work that we're doing around the world. In addition to being a research lab-esque kind of environment, we also have an innovation fund. And today's talk is going to be focusing on how we leverage the innovation fund to accelerate UNICEF's learnings with a variety of different emerging technologies. The reason for that is because in the next month or so, UNICEF is going to be opening another call for blockchain startups specifically. So if your blockchain startup company is doing work in countries that UNICEF operates in, I wanted to give you guys an overview of how you might be able to join our venture fund cohort in the coming year. And a lot of the work that we do is data-driven, so we have a bunch of mechanisms in place to get data from countries, get data from governments, the startups that work with us, and a lot of the insights that we generate or have access to, ultimately we try to apply in a systematic approach. And so with the Innovation Fund and the Office of Innovation, we have been asking ourselves, where does blockchain have an opportunity to play a role in a lot of the work that we do? And so we started our explorations in 2015. I think around that time, we were still trying to understand what are the key properties that blockchains can, I guess, store or enable people to kind of use. And so we started ideating around, can we capture some kind of digital identity around people and store it on a blockchain? And I think when we first dove into that realm, I think we were still trying to understand how tech was working behind blockchain. And a lot of that work went into that. And then when we actually tried to implement the solution that we hypothesized back then, we weren't thinking about the end user, right? And blockchain is a technology that we found that if you're not focusing on the end user, you can go so many different directions where into the blockchain rabbit hole, which may not be super applicable to the end user. And so, it was a failure per se, but a lot of the learnings that we got from that 2015 project carried forward into some of the work that we're currently doing. And so, we got more and more familiar over time with how the tech was being used. We've tried setting up our own nodes. The one we've listed here is specifically for the Ethereum blockchain, but we've done work with the Bitcoin blockchain. We've done a little bit of research with other platforms like Hyperledger. And we try to keep an open space just because we understand that different people, different regions, different countries are going to be tackling their local issues in different ways. And so, instead of focusing on one or two blockchain platforms, we try to stay open-minded about which platforms may be used to solve problems. And so as we kind of matured in our understanding of the technology, UNICEF then started to play a more active role around learning and advocacy. And so starting in 2017, we started traveling the world a little bit, working with our country offices, meeting the blockchain startups that were in those ecosystems and organizing hackathons for people to attend so that the people that are actually living in the region, once they understand the fundamentals behind the technology, can they build solutions leveraging that blockchain lesson or learnings that they would get at the events that UNICEF would organize. More recently, we did events alongside ETH Global. So we went to South Africa recently. We went to Thailand as well, just again to touch base with the ecosystem that exists for the blockchain space and get local practitioners to join us to, I guess, implement blockchain solutions for tackling their local problems. From a more enterprise perspective, we've had our fundraising arms for UNICEF, so UNICEF France, UNICEF Australia, look at ways that they can accept cryptocurrency donations as well. The reason that a lot of our fundraising arms are looking to do that is because when donors are looking to fund money or fund UNICEF, they want to see where the money actually ends up being spent. And so, I think a big takeaway through our blockchain exploration was cryptocurrencies and digital currencies on the blockchain allow for that level of transparency. And so ultimately that allowed us to drive this discussion around, or I guess this implementation around something called a crypto fund, which I will dive into a little bit later. But the crypto fund was set up to take donations in crypto and then spend it in the countries that UNICEF works in crypto as well to kind of boost the ecosystem. And so I'll dive into that in just a second. So I mentioned that we're doing like a large amount of work, keeping tabs on different blockchains, seeing how these different blockchain solutions can be applied to over 130 country offices or 190 countries. And so there's just a lot of things to keep track of. And one of the ways that our organization is able to kind of keep up with how technology is evolving is with something called the Venture Fund. And so the Venture Fund actually gives up to $100,000 in US dollars of equity-free seed capital for startups. And what happens is the company will join a UNICEF Venture Cohort, and they're paired with a portfolio manager. And over a year's time, they'll build something that's open source and reusable within like a UN or UNICEF ecosystem. And so we support blockchain companies for sure, but we've also made investments into artificial intelligence startups, drone startups, AR and VR as well. And what we find is, they're building open source tech to solve issues in their local communities. And that's why, UNICEF is able to, keep up to date with a lot of the new tech that's coming out. And so I'll dive into some of the specifics that, UNICEF kind of provides when the startups get onboarded. But before I jump into that, over the past few years, we've made over 85 investments in countries across the world. I think it's 55 countries, and I think my image has cut off the text a little bit, but it is 55 countries. And some of the investments we've made is in UNICEF country offices. Some of them are startups that we haven't worked with in the past. And so with these two mechanisms in place, country offices and the startups that are working in these regions are able to very quickly understand where blockchain can play a role. And then these learnings are then shared within the broader UNICEF and even UN ecosystem. And so just a few weeks ago, we had our first blockchain cohort graduate from our blockchain cohort. We had companies from Mexico, Argentina, India, Bangladesh, and Tunisia focusing on their local problems. And so, for example, in Mexico, there was a startup called Prescripto. They wanted to reduce or eliminate the double spending problem of prescriptions. And so I guess doctors were giving people prescriptions, and then people were taking that prescription and getting them redeemed in multiple places. And so it sounded similar to the Bitcoin double spending problem. And so they applied some of the same principles to the solution that they implemented. And over the last year, they've been working closely with UNICEF and a lot of the regions that we work in to tackle that issue around double spending prescriptions. We have also W3 Engineers, which built a mobile connectivity platform using cryptocurrency. So if there are people in refugee camps that need to interact with each other, but they don't have the means because of the way that they were displaced, W3 Engineers built out a platform that works with the government and the refugee camps to ensure that there can be some kind of market in place using the app that they've created. And so we're seeing these countries tackle the issues that they're seeing pop up in their regions, and the solutions that they're building, because they're open source, we want to then scale these platforms so that they can be used by other UNICEF offices in the future. And so what does it mean to join the UNICEF Innovation Venture Fund cohort? It's a 12-month roadmap, and so it starts off with a workshop where you get to meet the people at UNICEF that you'll be interacting with over the year. So you'll meet people from our blockchain team, our fund team, the broader Office of Innovation. We have a team of designers and business analysts as well that help the companies over time build out whatever aspect of business that they need to be built out, so that at the end of the cohort, they're able to then take whatever learnings they got from our venture fund and then get ready for the next level of funding or growth or whatever they're looking for in 12 months. And so, as mentioned before, you come on board, you get tied with a portfolio manager, and every month we try to touch base with you to figure out how you're growing your platform, if you need to meet different stakeholders, if you need specific mentorship around design or business or open source. We try to give you the resources that you need, and we touch base with the startups frequently so that we can cater to what the exact needs are based on how they're growing their platform for the year. We have a lot of UNICEF specific context, so whether it's a course or connecting with someone that's very deep into a specific part of the work that they're doing. As the startups build out their technology, what we try to do is, from a technical, strategic, and programmatic perspective, we try to connect the startups to these types of resources. So from a tech perspective, we have product teams, and we have teams that have done work in the program countries that the startups might be working in. We have designers that have taken very complex technologies and made it intuitive and easy to understand for people that UNICEF ultimately interacts with. We also have several programmatic divisions around water sanitation, working with people with disabilities, education, childhood development and stuff. And so these are people that have spent their career building out that expertise. And so if startups need that type of depth from UNICEF, we also make those connections as well. From an external perspective, we're also very well connected with partners in the ecosystem. And so we try to get people business mentorship and open source mentorship so that the solution that they build can be a sustainable business to pursue once they leave our venture fund cohort as well. And so, whether it's building an open source community behind the tech that they're working on, or if it's getting ready to apply for Series A or some additional seed funding, we have business mentors that help guide our startups through that program as well. In addition to, I guess, the support that we give, through the people that UNICEF engages, we also have a variety of technical infrastructure set up so that if you need to do testing or gather data, we have worked with governments and different UN agencies to create platforms that aggregates this type of information so that the startups that we work with can further leverage that. And so I think the most tangible example that I can think of is UNICEF Innovation, for example, has worked with governments to create space to fly drones, right? And so flying drones in a lot of areas is typically illegal, or they don't have policy and regulation behind it. But then UNICEF has been able to drive these types of discussions. We have an initiative like Magic Box, which ultimately consolidates different data sets from different governments and countries so that if you're a startup or if UNICEF needs information in this consolidated fashion, this initiative Magic Box is able to gather these insights from governments and countries and users on the ground very quickly without having to think about what is the process that I need to gather data from a refugee camp, for example. And I think another big benefit of working through the venture fund cohort is the connections that we have in our UNICEF country offices. And so, UNICEF is a global organization. And so the ability to, go work in Kazakhstan or Bangladesh or India is a tremendous opportunity that the startups have definitely taken advantage of to really validate the projects that they're working on. And so what we've seen over the last few years as more and more startups go through UNICEF, a lot of them are now working with our regional and country offices through long-term agreements. They get follow-on funding, and then they're also connected with a lot of the partners that we have in our ecosystem as well. And so we've seen a lot of growth and success coming out of the startups that go through the venture fund cohort, which is why I wanted to open it up to this blockchain ecosystem as well. From a UNICEF perspective, where we play a big role around helping the startups grow after their first year, we have a growth fund. And so after the first 100K investment, if we see that the startup is actually working on something that's very relevant to UNICEF's work, we have additional funding opportunities between 200 and 400K in size. At that point, I think we have to figure out how your growth is going to be and how you're going to scale the platform. And we have teams that focus on that internally as well. Recently, we also introduced something called the Crypto Fund. The Crypto Fund we launched at DEF CON 5 in October 2019. And the idea there is to take crypto donations and spend that crypto, and then take that crypto donation, give it to startups, and then the startups have to also spend it in cryptocurrency as well. And so what we're currently exploring, and given that the fund is relatively young, the concepts that we're trying to explore is, can startups build out work plans against crypto payments and then find vendors and services that they can also pay in the crypto that they receive? And so, we're securing additional funding, and in the future, what we're trying to see is, can we very quickly deploy digital currencies to the groups that are doing the work on the ground? And if you join our venture fund cohort, that this opportunity will be available to you as well. And so I'll stop there. I have some additional links if you are all interested in learning more about some of the other work that our team at the Office of Innovation does conduct. If you're interested in joining the cohort and you're wondering about the application process, you can email us at blockchain@unicef.org. And additionally, I'd encourage you guys to follow us on Twitter, because when we do post jobs or future funding opportunities and that kind of stuff, our Twitter is usually the first place that gets updated. And if you guys want to see the work that we've done in UNICEF France around accepting crypto, if you scan the barcode on this slide, it'll take you to the page where you can see what kind of crypto they accept and all that kind of stuff. So thank you. I'm going to jump back into Crowdcast, and let's see. I'm going to turn on my video. And awesome. So there's 3 questions. I'll try to jump through them. What are the pros and cons, or what are the pros of using blockchain versus a regular database in the context of UNICEF? Does transparency outweigh the potential downsides, such as complexity, low speeds, fees, and hacks? And so that's a great question. And I think with a lot of the explorations that our team does, it's these types of things that we're trying to validate. And so we did a project in UNICEF Kazakhstan, for example, and in that scenario, what they were doing was they were digitizing a certain part of their vendor procurement. And so if they wanted to work with a vendor, they have to get the vendor to give a work plan. And then based on the work plan, they were looking to release different amounts of funding as the work plan got completed. And so I think initially it was a very manually intensive process, chasing people around for signatures. Different people within the organization were, had different information that they wanted to throw in. And so I think with that in mind, what we wanted to validate was, if we put this on a blockchain platform, does it make it more transparent for the donor to see, this is how UNICEF Kazakhstan is spending their money to build out some kind of service. And so yes, we can expose certain parts of our database to do the same thing. And so once the platform got built, these are the types of questions we can now ask, right? So we can see, this is how much effort it took to build, this is how much effort it is to maintain going forward, here are some of the risks. And the reason we do build things and then kind of ask our questions after is then we can see and drive those types of discussions. And so I think our donors are looking for transparency, and then what we're trying to do is figure out if it makes sense. The next question is, spending crypto in countries where it's not considered legal tender a problem for UNICEF? That is an excellent question. And so the way UNICEF is set up, or from an organization perspective, is very interesting. For each of the UNICEF country offices that we have around the world, each one of them are registered against their local specifications and regulations. And so if a country wants to do work with crypto, I think they usually figure out what the laws and regulations are before they approach, say, UNICEF Innovation to get the next set of steps for them to get ready to accept crypto or spend crypto. And so that way, headquarters doesn't have to figure all of that stuff out. Because we have the country offices in the country that we work for, they can kind of drive those discussions. And another cool thing about UNICEF is, if there is a UNICEF office in a specific country, it's usually because the government does want them to be there. And so the country office has a very close relationship with the government already, and so they can kind of dive into some of the legalities and regulations behind crypto before doing the work there. I think in Kazakhstan, for example, there actually has been a lot of discussions with the banking authority or the money authority, UNICEF, and I guess to figure out, right now it might not be legal, but can we create a space where we can do some kind of prototype to validate if crypto makes sense or not? So these are the types of discussions we're able to have given our global context. Let's see. So do you think the crypto fund can improve transparency for donors in UNICEF, thus ensuring more donors? I think what we're trying to do right now is, with our design team, actually really think through what the experience will be for donors. So we're working very closely with donors right now to explain to them how cryptocurrency can be transparent in regards to how their donations are spent. And then we're building web platforms for them as well. And so a project that we're going to release in the coming months, if you go to cryptofund.unicef.io, Maybe I'll type it in the chat. And so what we're trying to validate is, if the donors have this level of transparency with crypto, does it benefit the donor, and does it encourage them to spend more? And so that is something we're definitely exploring. And these types of conversations just take a lot of time, I'd say. Another interesting question, do you have universal basic income pilots running, or do we plan to? UNICEF specifically hasn't done any work with cryptocurrency or blockchain and universal basic income. We do kind of explore, I guess, figuring out how to deploy money where it needs to be. So for example, in the context of refugee camps or emergencies, we want to make sure that once they're in those situations, they have the resources that they need to get access to food or education or other services. And so I know that we have teams at UNICEF that focus on that. We haven't done any work specifically with blockchain in those teams, but I think that could be something very interesting to explore in the future. Let's see. So yeah, I guess like leaving thoughts, our team is functioning like a research team. So a lot of the technology limitations, we're trying to see if they're popping up in the countries that we do work in as well. And with that feedback, we try to build better solutions. I think we're trying to solve the problem as opposed to validate, if blockchain is the right fit. And so that question is there as well. But I think ultimately we want to ensure that the work that we do benefits the person that it will be interacting with. And so, yeah, that's all I have for today. So I'll just pull up the slide once more, or I guess it is still showing. So if you guys have additional questions in the future, please feel free to email blockchain@unicef.org, and someone on our team or myself will definitely get back to you. Thanks. Sinju, I guess she's probably prepping for the next call, but thanks everyone.
All right, thanks so much. We're going to transition to our next session now. And thank you so much. This is a really great talk.
Awesome. Thank you very much.